note is I would love to, usually when we do this seminar every year at the Oaks, there's two groups of people. The first group is the majority of you. You're already deciding to go through Rush. Obviously, if you're a girl, you had to work on that before you came here. But there's a smaller percentage, you have to do a lot. There's a smaller percentage of you, and particularly guys, where you may, maybe I'm going to go through Rush, maybe I'm not. Right? They can still sign up, even though summer bids and formal Rush is a smaller thing. So what we would like to do in the next 40 minutes is just try to give some perspective. Is why should a Christian be in a fraternity? And why should a Christian be in a sorority? And perhaps maybe give you a bigger idea for that, why that could be a great thing for you. I would also like to be quick to say that Greek life is not for everybody. It can be extremely damaging to people's faith. So I want to just put that in your mind, that it's not always the best thing. The reason I say that, for me, because I became a Christian in a fraternity house, Greek life was extremely positive to my spiritual life, so I tend to be of that persuasion, like, oh, yes, do it, it's good. But I will say that it can be very bad. So, just a little bit about myself. Were y'all all there this morning, I guess, so I kind of got to know you. Basically, I'm from San Antonio. I went to school at Texas, married a beautiful cow from Auburn, woke up one day and had 6 kids. So that's my short story. There was a lot more that happened in between there. But I went off to school really with your typical view of college and Greek life. And I was going to try to find the perfect intersection between having fun and having a high GPA. Where could I find the perfect intersection of really partying, but also having a good grade point average. Nothing in my mind was focused on my spiritual life at all. That was sort of last on my list. I wasn't really even thinking about that. And so, as I mentioned in there, though, I got 3 phone calls that really sort of shaped my life. My girlfriend getting blacked by a fraternity and my parents' divorce really sort of set me up for when I did pledge how God was going to work in my life. And so I pledged fraternity, and there was a guy named Randy. And Randy basically explained to me how to become a Christian and how to walk with God. And he discipled me. It is incredibly hot in here, Jamie. You should turn the air conditioner on. But Randy led me to Christ. Was in a Bible study for a year with Randy. And at the end of that year, Randy basically challenged me to see the Pike House as my mission field. And those are sort of the 2 capstones, if you would, of 2 significant conversations. One is how I could know God, and then secondly, how I could be used by God. So hopefully you'll leave with an idea of both of those today, even though we're really brief. Don't worry about it if it's that complicated.
I accidentally hit the service call, so
yeah, we're all in trouble now. Anyway, I was speaking in a pledge class 2-3 years ago at Auburn. I don't remember which one. And they set me up in front of the pledge class. I know it's the behind me is the big plasma TV screen, and there was just something on. Nobody listened to me talk, so he was going to be like, they're going to watch you the whole time. That's what that thing I listened to. So anyway, but this sheet that only 50 of you have, and that will be in the back of the room, was something we put together at Greek Summit. So I want to just put this in the back of your mind. Every May, we take Greeks from around the southeast, and we take them down to Destin for 2.5 weeks with the intent purpose of giving you a vision of how you can flourish and walk with God in the Greek system and how you can influence others. And so I'm going to just take 15 minutes from that. It's something we do in 2.5 weeks. But that's really the purpose of this brief seminar, is that it is possible to flourish in your walk with God in the sorority. And it is possible, if you can believe it, guys, to flourish in your walk with God in the fraternity house. That's possible. Not only that, even more amazing, it's possible for God to use you in other people's lives. And so one of the seminars we do down in Destin is this one, how to be more than just another Christian in a Greek house, or this one says difference between a Christian and a disciple in a Greek house. Now, if you've read your Bible, you would know that there's something about that title that's wrong, right? Because biblically there's no difference between a Christian and a disciple. If you're a Christian, you are a disciple. But we live in the Deep South, we're in the Bible Belt, hey, we're all Americans, we're all Christians, right? So I'm making that distinction just to make a point, because everybody will claim to be a Christian at all and most of the time. So like I said, I want to challenge you with this idea of being a disciple in your sorority and being a disciple in your fraternity. So that year I went to school, or I pledged pipe. My roommate Matt and I were both greatly influenced by this guy named Randy. And so back in those days, so this was a long time ago, it was called pledgeship. It's not called that anymore for girls. And it was also at the end of pledgeship, the pledgeship was at least 6 months long. At the end of pledgeship, they had this really fun week called Hell Week. And so Hell Week was designed for a lot of different things. I actually enjoyed it myself. But we knew it, Matt and I knew ahead of time that during Hell Week, you never knew what time it was. You never knew when you were going to get to eat, or if you were going to get to eat, and you were pretty sure you wouldn't sleep. But so we had heard the rumors. So Matt and I sort of prepared, before the week, and some of our friends, some of our girlfriends made us cookies. We hid a cooler in the basement of the pike house because we knew we could get food and drink when we wanted. We also knew that week we'd be doing a big project, and so we were building this wall in our living room. And so there was actually some constructive things that happened, during this week. And so every time they would say, Bill, Matt, hey, why don't y'all go get some nails, go get some hammers, we would disappear. Instead of being gone for 5 minutes, we would disappear down the basement for like 45 minutes. And there was a bunch of us, so they didn't know we were gone. And so we'd be just down in the basement, hiding behind the big air conditioning unit, drinking our cold Cokes, eating our cookies, just kind of high-fiving ourselves. We're so smart. We outsmarted the brothers. And so Matt and I are new believers. And so I'm down in the basement one day. Y'all know what composite pictures are, right? Yeah. So every chapter has the big composite picture with, the whole sorority and the whole fraternity. And so we noticed one day we're down there hiding and drinking and eating, and realized all the composite pictures are behind the air conditioner where we're hiding. So I don't know if y'all have ever seen the movie Dead Poets Society with Robin Williams, where they're looking at the old pictures and laughing at the guys' sideburns and their glasses and their haircuts. It was kind of like that for Matt and I. We're just kind of flipping through the composite pictures from the 20s, from the 30s, from the 40s, and just kind of laughing at each generation and each picture. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks that someday that was going to be me. That was going to be my life. And that I was going to graduate, and after 4 years, the composite picture went around the San Antonio room in the living room, and in the 5th year, they stuck it down in the basement behind the air conditioner. And that was going to be me. And as a new believer, that kind of bothered me. Because I was really thinking, just in a small way for the first time, I was thinking about somebody other than myself. I'd never done that before. And so I began to ask some questions. I'm going to give you 2 questions. If you want to write these down, that I want you to think about for yourself in terms of Greek life. So, the first question I want you to think about is this. How will my chapter be different as a result of me being there? How will my chapter be different as a result of me being there. How will my chapter be different as a result of me being there? And then the second question, what will be the lasting legacy of my chapter once I'm gone? What will be your lasting legacy on your chapter once you're gone? Isn't that an interesting question to think about on the eve of Rush? I mean, I know your minds are on so many other things right now regarding Rush. But it's an interesting question to think about. This whole idea of leaving a spiritual legacy. It's a really powerful thought. What will be your lasting legacy on your house? That's the intent of this sheet. And so what I did is, again, this is a 45-minute talk that I have 15 minutes on. So last hour I just hit 3 of them. Y'all can pick them if you want. I did 3 of these. I did number 2. Let's do the same ones. And then what I want you to do, if you think about it, if I have another piece of paper you can write a question on and just begin to pass them up front, Kill, or get them. It's easier to ask questions if you can just write them down and pass them up. So any question you want to ask about Rush, Fletcher, Greek life, Christian, please do that because our time's pretty limited. Okay, so we're going to talk about how you can leave a legacy in your house. That's what this is for. If you want to hear the whole talk, you need to come to Destin next year. But I just go through 10 things. So let's just look at let's do number 2. That's a good one. Number 2, a Christian views their house as a source of friendships and fun. And they look for ministry opportunities outside of the house. And you see the ones listed there, those are all legitimate great ministries. I've been at 4 different campuses, been in Auburn the longest, but I was at a campus once, and we kind of circled what we considered the top fraternity on campus, at this campus, and there was nothing going on in it spiritually. And so we began to pray that God would raise up a guy that would sort of see this as his place, that God's placed him to have a ministry. And sure enough, the guy becomes a Christian, starts walking with the Lord, and he moves out of the house and moves across town and lives with some of his Christian friends. We're like, shoot. He would still go to a thing or two. So we prayed another 6 months. Another guy starts walking with the Lord. And he hears about another ministry on the other side of town. There's so many great ministries in Auburn. And he again moves out of the house. So I go to our staff meeting next week and said, hey, the next time a guy becomes a Christian in that house, I'm going to go stand in front of the front door and say, you can't leave. This is God's place for you for ministry. Because what's really interesting with all of Greek life, one of the scariest, most challenging things to do is minister to your peers. Honestly, it's easy for me to get on a plane and go to another country and do it. It's harder for me to do it with people that are my age and my stage of life. So when you start thinking about this idea of legacy and leaving a spiritual legacy in your sorority and fraternity, the first people you think of isn't your pledge brothers and your sorority sisters. It's often like, well, there's another group on the other side of town that I don't live around, and that's kind of the easier route to go. Where the other side of the page there, a disciple views their house as God's place for them for personal ministry. They see the bigger picture, that I'm not just here for the Greek experience. The verse there in Esther 4:13 and 14, if you know that's a popular scripture, it's a great one, where her uncle Mordecai is writing her to say, hey, you can make a difference. And he uses this incredible phrase, for perhaps it's for such a time as this that God has placed you where you are. And I would say that for you, that you're getting ready to go through rush, and maybe your older sister's in the sorority, maybe you're a legacy, maybe all your high school friends are in a particular fraternity. It's like, yeah, I'm just going to be in this one. But I would say bigger than that is that God is going to place you where you're going to be. That this fall, the fall of 2017, you're going to be at Auburn University, and you're going to be in a particular Greek house, Greek chapter. God placed you there. And I think with that in mind, with that bigger perspective, that perhaps He has you there for reasons that you never even thought, for the purposes of God. So that's just number one. Any questions on that one, or any thoughts to get y'all talking? These are always better if you talk, by the way, instead of just me talking. Okay, interrupt me or write your question down. This is the esteemed Greek panel from Auburn University. They'll answer most of your questions. Okay, so how about this one? We'll do number 4. Do number 4. Christian views a house Bible study as successful ministry. Christian views a house Bible study as successful ministry. So when I do this point, after I finish with it, people think, oh, you think Bible studies are bad. So disclaimer, I think Bible studies are very great. But I'm trying to make a purpose. And trying to make this point. And often the answer to ministry for people is by the way, large worship meetings at Auburn are a dime a dozen. And I'm more of the opinion that less is more. But I think we always want to go to the big worship meetings, the big Bible studies, and it's just easy, like I mentioned this morning, for you to float around in the back of those meetings and no one to really know what's going on in your own life. And so that this point is really trying to get you to the place where you're known and you're becoming known by others, instead of you're just always at the big meetings with other groups of Christians. So a disciple, on the right side, views a group study with discipleship and spiritual multiplication as successful. So Randy, that led me to Christ, his sophomore year, had a real heart for the Pike House. And so at the time, this was a long time ago, that year, I forgot who it was that was making money off of predicting when Jesus was going to return. It does pop up about every 5 years. Usually, for some reason, it's always in September. I haven't really thought about it doing it myself, but if I could make a bunch of money, I don't know. But so there was a book out about a guy, Jesus was going to come back on September 17th or something. And so everybody was into that. So Randy's like, well, we're going to do a Bible study in the end times. We're going to study the book of Revelation. So he started at the beginning of the year, and it was a pretty good group. And the school year went on, and it came to May, and he realized that he was the only one there. It's like, shoot. So then the next year, he's trying to think about, okay, what's something that would be really interesting to the guys? So we'll do something on love, sex, and dating. Everybody's interested in that. Start out the Bible study, pretty interesting, pretty good group. Semester, finals gone, get to the end of the semester, it's just Randy. And he realized, wow, next year's my senior year. If this happens again, then this thing all ends. So what he did that next year is he said, I'm just going to pick 5 guys, and I'm going to focus on those 5 guys. And I'm going to do a small group Bible study with them once a week, and then I'm going to meet with them for lunch. And if they don't know Christ, I'm going to share the gospel with them. And if they know Christ, I'm going to ask them hard questions every week about their life, how their devotional life is going. what their relationship with their girlfriend's like, how their purity's going. I'm going to actually disciple these guys. And not just sort of try to have something to do all the time. So that year goes on, and there was 5 of us in that group. Randy leaves that next year, come back that next year. Guess what? There's 2 of us. And then the next year, there's 4 of us. Kind of a cool story, but for over a decade, and probably even 15 years or longer, Randy could go back to that chapter and say, hey, Mike, you in a group? Is that, yeah, I'm in a group. Whose group are you in? Well, I'm in Steve's group. Oh, really? Steve, whose group? Well, he's graduated, but I was in Joe's group. And he could trace it back to that group of 5 guys. He had really left a spiritual legacy. One where his composite picture was stuffed down behind the air conditioner, but the impact and the weight of his life continued on for years. Isn't that a neat story? Now that can make it sound so glamorous and good, but anything regarding ministry is difficult. But to say that is that Auburn is such a great place for your spiritual life. It can also be a very bad place for your spiritual life. But it's easy to sort of get caught up in programs, in events, big worship meetings with lots of people. And my challenge to you as you go into Greek life, think about what kind of legacy you want to leave. Think about what kind of impact you want your life. And think, go to the big worship meetings, but think of your personal ministry. Go from there to here. Who are 3 or 4 girls I could focus in my life after I make it through my first year? And somebody's helping me. And the same with you guys. Think about that. Okay, so y'all with me still? We've been in meetings all day, haven't we? Okay, so and it's warm in here, and I'm trying to think. It's 2. What do we have till 2:30?
2:15. 2:15. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay, then I need to be quiet. I was going to do one more good one. I'll do one more. Okay, where are all the questions? Oh, here's some. Okay, you pass them up. Pass them up. So again, I'm going to leave copies for this in the back of the room. I'd love to do the whole thing because I'm just kind of ripping 2 pieces out of that message, but I'm trying to just whet your appetite. Okay, so we're going to, this is Jamie Gann. He was Sigma Phi at Auburn, president of his fraternity. This is Morgan, she's an Alpha Gamma, and this is Kale, KA. And they're still in school. Jamie just graduated. Wait, I'm not. Yeah, they're still in school. Jamie just graduated. He's going to go be a missionary in China this next year. Isn't that cool? So, see, good things can't come out of the Greek system. Okay, so. All right, here we go. Question number 1. What is a good way to minister to your sisters or brothers in Greek life when you feel like they might know you, see you by your past mistakes? So what's a good way to use when you feel like, hey, I've got my own track record and they know it, and it's not great? You say what?
I feel like that gives you even like a greater voice. This is coming from someone that definitely has a track record. So out of experience, I feel like it allows you to actually talk to them on a level and you can say, like, I've been there, like I've had that mentality. Y'all run into that a lot in Auburn. I remember I had a friend, his advice to freshmen was go out as much as you can, get drunk as much as you can, have as much fun as you can. Like that's a lot of people's mentality. That's going to lead you to a really dark place, led me to a really dark place. So I think once you get there, you do turn to God, you have that new testimony, I think that can have a huge impact. And I definitely don't think you should be weighed down by your track record, but rather allow God to use that track record to reach people that may be going down that same path you were.
So I came in to college and I was like the super good girl, preacher's daughter, like never dreamed of doing anything wrong. I was pretty shell-shocked when I got to Auburn, made a lot of mistakes, like you name it, probably made that mistake. And kind of, it was actually through a trip with crew that I kind of realized, woke up to my sin and what I've been doing, and I just had a life change, and that was in my sophomore year. And I'm not gonna lie, it was hard, probably for a couple months, because people were like, oh, that's just a phase. Like, she'll come out of it, she's still on that Jesus high, and then she'll come back down, she'll come back and, she'll party with us later, and it's gonna be great. And so I think a lot of times, like, you can't control that somebody says, oh, well, I saw them do this before, or I saw them act this way. You can't control that people are gonna think that, but what you can control is what they're gonna see later. And what I've seen is that a lot of times what makes even more of an impact is when they see an actual change in you. And when they say, I saw how they were and now I see how they are, and there's something different, something happened, and that's real. And for me, like, in my life, that's had so much of an impact with other girls, because they've been able to see, like, oh, wait, I can actually change. Like, it's not just something I'm stuck. There's something on the other side. So I actually think that God can use anything, and He definitely used that. I don't remember the verse off the top of my head, but it says how God takes things that were dark and He exposes them, and then they become light. And so how God can be exposure of from darkness to light hurts, and it's painful, and it's kind of embarrassing, but the second it becomes light, it's not dark anymore. And it's no longer seen as dark. Now it's only light, and so God only uses it from then on. So I guess that's what I would say.
Yeah, I agree with what they said. I think, especially like for me, so I became a Christian my junior year. I just finished my 5th year, so there were like 2 years when I was in college that I was really walking with the Lord. And something that kind of came to mind when I heard the question was first, I think it's Romans 3:23, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. All of us have a past record. We've all done something just throughout our lives. And so sometimes it's more, it might be more glamorous or appealing, or less, I guess, like ugly. But truly, all of us have that past record of sin. If not, there wouldn't be a reason for Christ to come and die. And the second thought of that is in Galatians or Ephesians, I don't remember, but basically, like when Christ was crucified and like died on the cross, like our record of sin was nailed on the cross that day. And so just like our sins have been like crucified with Him, like we've been raised to new life. And so, yeah, absolutely. I think for me, I thought that like my grades and involvement and going out and all sorts of just, I mean, like just you name it, drugs, hooking up with girls. I thought that was going to be it. And I think it's been cool to see like 2 years later, like people start to ask us like, it's like, hey, like what happened to Jamie? Like, freshman, sophomore, junior year, like he like went out and like this was him. Like when he came back over the summer, like it was different. And so, yeah, absolutely. I think whatever like sin you have in your life, I think just confessing that sin, repenting of it, and allowing God to work through that. Yeah.
Okay, here's a question, and then if there's not any more coming up, you can just raise your hand. We're about out of time, but would you three guys say is the single best thing you've done for your spiritual life as a fraternity man and a sorority woman at all? Just what's the best thing? Just pass up any more.
This is kind of answering that, but kind of not. But I would say like girls, I'm sorry guys, this is more like for girls, but like, I know a lot of y'all are told like not to bring up the Bible, God, your like Christianity, anything like that during rush. And I'm just gonna go ahead and say that's terrible advice. Do not listen to that, because that's wrong. And if you want to find a sorority that loves Jesus, you need to go through rush and try to find out by talking to these girls like, hey, what kind of like Bible studies do you have that I could get involved in next year? Or I don't know, I guess off the top of my head I can't think of anything else, but If you want to get involved with a sorority with girls that love the Lord, and surround yourself with people that are going to build you up instead of tear you down, Rush is an amazing opportunity, and what can be a really superficial process. And if you can find girls who want to talk to you about the Lord during that, it's a pretty good sign that maybe you should look in that direction. And same thing for vice versa. But I would say definitely 2 weeks from now when you're going through Rush, I would highly recommend when you have conversations with girls, asking them spiritual questions. It may make them uncomfortable, but I know some of the girls who are almost counselors in this room would start jumping up and down if somebody asked them that question during Rush. So I would recommend that, because that's also going to put you in a place in a sorority with girls who are going to build you up, and that's the best thing you can do for yourself, I think, coming into Auburn.
What's the best thing you've done for spiritual life at all?
I would say moving into my fraternity house, which sounds like I'm talking nonsense, I'm sure. But yeah, absolutely. I think moving into the house, like the spring of my junior year, right after I became a believer, was probably the single the single best thing.
Single most best.
Yeah, the best of the best. And the reason I say that is just because living in the fraternity house is extremely hard, and it can be a dark place, and there's a lot of, there's just a lot of distractions and temptations and sin, and just, not necessarily any more than anywhere else, but at the same time, living in the house, really, you got to commit. I think being able to live in the house and you just get to, I got to know my fraternity brothers better, but not just that. I really had to think about it. It's do I really believe the things that I say I believe? If I really believe that Jesus is my Lord and Savior, and I really believe that the guys that I'm that I claim to be fraternity brothers with, best friends with, if I believe that because they don't have a relationship with Christ, that they're going to go to hell. It's why would I not go tell all my fraternity brothers? Why? What reason do I have to hold up inside an apartment and not go tell them? And so it's been hard, and I've definitely screwed up along the way. But I think moving in the house and getting really involved in my fraternity was probably, those two are the big difference. It just shows them that, one, externally, it shows them that you care. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. I know that's a platitude, and it's okay, cool, go put that on a poster, but really, I think moving in and actually invest in other guys really required me to kind of make a decision.
Yeah, I would kind of piggyback off what Jamie said, just being involved in your fraternity or sorority, the impact God can use there, what a pedestal. Once you get here, there's going to be so many people looking for all these things and trying to fill these holes that only God can fill. And what an opportunity to point them in the only direction that's fulfilling. And I've been to Nicaragua with the crew in East Asia, and those are awesome. They're really cool experiences, but I feel the most impact and the best has been in the fraternity house, being chaplain and getting the opportunity to just talk to these guys and be intentional. And you have the opportunity, once you get older, to talk to young men and women coming in and show them what it looks like to be a Christian man or a Christian woman in college, and truly live it out and pour into them. So I feel all these experiences are awesome, Greek Summit, all these mission trips are great, but I feel you shouldn't leave your ministry there. If you allow them to prepare you to come back in Auburn, you can have way more of an impact than you could ever imagine, or God will through you.
Okay, so we're out of time. Wish we had more time for more questions. Have your assignment before you leave. Sorry, when you want to go to games. I want you to read through this before you go through Rush Week, girls and guys. Before you go through your formal run, I want you to read through this with devotion and Scripture. And Kel, we close in prayer.